long my voice will last.
We are live. Do you remember where we left off? Oh, do we have it marked? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Hey, everybody. Part 3 of our
Are we
analysis of the 5 spiritualities with Laura Ralls.
And hello, everyone. Gosh, my voice, sorry. But I did want to say, if you want the best Christmas present for yourself, but it's also a present for everyone around you, it doesn't cost any money. You don't have to give your email address, your medical history, your address, even your name, phone number, social security number. I already said that, I think. It's the 5 spiritualities, and it's free. You don't even need the book to learn about it. You can go on the site, and it's a miracle, really. It's the best gift that you could get this Christmas, or, you know. So anyway, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. I'm certainly thankful for the 5 spiritualities. Okay, so we were talking about the 5 spiritualities comes from Julio Kim. Let me find a good picture of her, a big one. And it started before she even knew there was a God. She was in the tradition of Buddhism, but I don't think she was really raised in a serious way. And but God was preparing her even before she knew he existed. So it's really interesting. And so you might not believe in God right now, but you could be one of God's greatest masterpieces. Although we are but special servant, and you don't even know yet, like her. But anyway, speaking of her life, so this is called the chronology of the little soul's life prepared by the Lord. So she was born March 3rd, 1947, which, keep in mind, this is Korea, and the Korean War was 1950, so you kind of know what direction that's going. The little soul's birth, the little soul of God, Julio Kim, was born in Daejongmyeon. Oh, Naju. Okay, she was born in Naju. She still lives in Naju. Her father, I'm not going to even try to say his name. Okay, I will. Si Jin-myung, was a scholar of Chinese classics. Cool. And a teacher at an elementary school. Her mother was Jiam Song-hong. 1 year after her birth, they moved to Gwangju, where her father worked. And I know Gwangju is like not a huge city like Seoul, maybe like a medium city, and it's about an hour from Naju. And Naju is pretty small. I think it's probably like maybe St. Charles City, not the county population. June 25th, 1950, exile. Her father was initially appointed to be transferred to a middle school, but out of jealousy, one of his colleagues received an appointment instead by falsely testifying that her father had communist rebel ties, such as doing their hair. Okay. Thus, her father had to flee to his wife's hometown with his father, wife, and 2 daughters, which was the little soul and her younger sister. So then, almost a year later, March 10th, 1951, the little soul's father went missing. Her father went to the market, and during this time, the man that falsely incriminated her father became afraid of being exposed for his fake allegations. So he made another report to the local police that her father was in league with the communist rebels. See, there's no black and white. That's what I found out about in El Salvador, where a lot of people here wanted to say, oh, it was the communists against Marxists against the rebels, well, or against the dictatorship. Well, the dictatorship had death squads and killed American nuns too. So, you know, things aren't always black and white. And the communism in Latin America isn't like the communism in that was in like Soviet Union. Although I look at it like this: communism and Marxism is a bad medicine for illness, but it's not the illness. The illness is something that is yet to be remedied, you know. And whenever you're thinking of the evils of communism and socialism, which, yeah, whenever anyone doesn't allow freedom of religion, that's bad. But I always think of the other side, and the thing that I think of the most is A Christmas Carol. Like, you know, the Industrial Revolution, when they had child labor and they got paid like a penny an hour.
Yeah.
And so you got to realize there's a balance there.
Yeah, they would actually chain kids to their machines so they couldn't take. Yeah. Kind of.
So I mean, you can't trust
in this country even before the labor unions got real active.
So I think sometimes people throw the baby out with the bathwater, and if you read the writings of even Saint Pope John Paul II, who was against communism, he was persecuted by communists when before and after he was a priest. But he always talked about he supported labor unions and the plight of the poor, and he was against unbridled capitalism without any regulations. But of course, a lot of Americans, not Americans, but a lot of capitalists don't want you to talk about that aspect. But that's another story. We're getting sidetracked. I guess the point is that there's no black and white here. In this case, it wasn't the communists that were responsible for her dad's persecution and death, but it was actually the anti-communists. So anyway, coincidentally on that day, communist rebels also attacked the police office for 3 days. So here he is being attacked, I guess, on both sides. Because, okay, her dad was in a prison being framed by a guy who they said was in line with the communist rebels. Because at that time, it was kind of like a democracy type country, I think. I don't know what you would describe it, but some sort of democracy. But the communist and the police and that were on the side, and that part of was not overcome by communists yet. And then the communists came, and it doesn't say here yet, but it will. They set the jail on fire. So anyway, the communist rebels attacked the police office for 3 days. The little soul's mother was informed that her husband was arrested and detained, so she went to the police to appeal for his release, but the police demanded money in return. Each time they asked for money, she obliged to their demands, but they still would not release her husband. Eventually, some rebels raided the police station and burnt it. See, we think we have problems. That kind of sounds like January 6th at a police station. Sorry, that's not funny. I was being serious, but you can picture it now. Like, this used to sound so other country stuff, but you can see this, like little elements. The little soul's family lost all traces of her father's whereabouts after that incident. In June of that year, the little soul's grandfather, who she loved and adored her grandfather, her grandfather went to his hometown to visit the police to seek more information about his son, and also to search for provisions. So everything was kind of in chaos with money and jobs. And there, the communist rebels shot him to death in a firing squad. So all this is happening, and here Mama Julia is what? This is 1951. She was born in 47, and she was very intelligent. Even as a baby in her crib, she has memories and she would do things and think about things. So she's very aware and conscious that what is going on here. And this is sad. The grandfather, the Mama Julia's mother, found his body, the grandfather's body, and made funeral arrangements. Tragedy upon tragedy.
Wait a minute, so I missed that part. How did the father die?
The father went missing.
Isn't that who they're just talking about right there?
No, that was the grandfather.
Oh,
so first,
okay.
The father's arrested by false accusations anyway.
Yeah.
So you'll see her family was persecuted too. Her mom went through a lot.
Okay.
He was never found, but the jail was set on fire, so
okay.
we're thinking maybe he got burnt alive. He might have run away and was shot too. See, the communists did not like that family because they were actually upper middle class, and I've heard more in depth about this story because I did that online retreat, and this was really sad. The mother went out and left Mama Julia by herself as a 3 or 4-year-old, by herself, for several days, and the mom went looking for her husband and the grandfather, and she assumed they were dead. And one of the actual communist rebels recognized her because he was a student a long time ago of Julio Kim's dad. And he was nice to her, and he said, I know there's a mass grave over such and such. So she went there. She jumped in this huge dugout thing and was looking through dead bodies. Talk about, this is a tough woman. And I saw her grave. She's buried at the Blessed Mother's Mountain site. But
her grandma or
her mother.
Her mother.
I never heard. There's some stories about her grandma, but not that much. Her grandfather she adored, though. This is a summary. There's more in depth, and they might go into it later. But anyway, and her grandmother had to crawl around and look through all these dead bodies, and you got to think there was blood, guts, just horror. So, these people, plus there was starvation. And the sad thing is, I think if someone was born in poverty and tragedy and just constant struggle, it's a tragedy, but a person didn't know anything else. But the thing about Mama Julia was her first 3 years of life were awesome. She was loved and adored by her parents. She was loved and adored by her grandfather. They played with her. She had lots of attention. They were upper middle class, so they had a nice big house. They ate good food, and then it was like, see, what happened was, and this is the next thing, and I'll just read it. The communists changed the currency. So all the currency of the democracy or whatever the country's, how it was, I think it was democracy, because that was after World War II. I think Japan invaded, and then when the United States came in and we helped rebuild Japan, we were also already helping Korea. So I guess they were pretty much all over. And North Korea was also a democracy, I guess, at that point. They were one country. So February 1953, so she's still pretty young, in her mother's family's house. Okay, in 1953, during the currency reform, all the property that her father accumulated became useless. So her mother began going around from village to village to sell fabrics, while the little soul, a 6-year-old girl, was placed under the care of her mother's family, and they were horrible to her, especially her uncle. Even as a child, the family constantly put the little soul to work during labor such as twisting straw rope, cutting fodder, boiling rice, washing clothes, and cleaning the house. I really wish I could tell you this book went in more detail, and maybe it will later, but it tells like little more specific stories about her as a little girl and how she could do, she always had special strength and intelligence. And when she was still a child, she could do the work of 3 men, and people couldn't believe it. And she could do things faster, and she was working. They had child labor back then. She worked in a factory, and the factories were like, we should pay her 3 times. She can do it faster than 3 people at once. When she turned 7, she began to take care of the baby, wash the baby's diapers at her uncle's house. Though her cousins were 3 and 5 years older than her, they could not do the tasks as easily as she could. The little soul excelled in whatever task she was assigned. The elders around her began to notice and commended her excellent work. I think this is kind of a sign, too, that she was a divine being, like she was prepared. God knew before she was born that she was special because she had such a almost supernatural abilities even when she was really young. And you think of Old Testament people, that like David, he was so small, but he had so much strength, and he could write great music, and he just, it reminds me of that. These things made her cousins jealous, so they attacked her in various ways, even staining her school clothes with feces. The thing about that story was they wore uniforms to school, the school they went to. And so they only had one, and her cousins, they were jealous of her, and they rubbed feces all over her clothes, and she's getting ready to go to school in the morning, and she didn't have time to wash them, obviously, and have them dry. So she had to wear regular clothes. So she goes to school wearing regular clothes, and they're like, what's wrong with her? Why is she wearing regular clothes? And keep in mind, she had a very tender and sensitive heart. So she couldn't really, this stuff was really imprinted in her. They forced her to attend to their portion of the family chores, and each time she could not finish their work, they would beat her severely. Despite the cousins' torments, she practiced some chigo, as if she was loved by them, finishing tasks diligently and fulfilling every duty until she grew up. I know that is not American, right? You're thinking, or that's just not that's not normal. Well, I know. That's why it's a mystery. But what about this, though? Whenever there's injustice, which a lot of things that is unjust in this world, we do not see justice in this time. And even when this one man that was the chaplain at Alcatraz, it's shut down now, and he was the chaplain for these people that had the death penalty, and he talked to them and would tell stories, and he said that he didn't believe in the death penalty because, number one, he was a Christian, and I think he believed that these people need to give a chance, and that if you're really a Christian, we shouldn't want people to be in hell. I mean, to be honest. But also, he said he never saw a family, because the families were there, the victims' families were there to watch, and they almost always showed up. And he was there also as a witness. Often you had to have a witness for the other side, for him. And he said, you know what? Never seeing someone executed, it never gave any family any peace. It did not help. That's the reason why. Because honestly, the death penalty isn't to protect us, because these people are in high maximum security. They're not going to escape. It's not for our greater protection. The death penalty is vengeance. It's a punishment, but if you're dead, how does he experience the punishment? Maybe the fear. Well, some of them wanted the death. There's been cases where they wanted the death penalty. They were asking for it. But anyway, so it's hard. It is a mystery, but if you follow through, you'll see how by practicing these things, you win. because you have no wounds. Wounds fester in our souls. And these people you see that do the mass shootings, or people that, do these terrible crimes and all kind of abuse and the vicious cycle, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional, all this stuff. You can even, practicing the 5 spiritualities, practice on wounds from the past. And those wounds, when they're not dealt with or not checked, they fester and they turn into bitterness and unresolved things that just build up. Like I think of the guy last night at the Walmart. He was a manager, and he must have been, it sounds like, holding all this stuff in.
Yeah, there was another mass shooting.
Yeah.
Just for all the people who might not be from this country.
Oh yeah, there was another. Imagine that, another mass shooting in the United States. Yeah. But he knew the people. But it was eerie because they said he didn't say anything and he wasn't targeting anybody. But he was a manager, a shift manager, and they said that he was really picky. Like he got into it with a lot of people, that he was picky, not verbal. So I'm thinking maybe he held stuff in and he kind of blew up. But
apparently,
I think the point is that this is a way, because you benefit. Because who wins when it's tit for tat, over and over? We all want justice. We all want to be like, no, they're wrong. I was right. Well, God knows. We don't have to deal with all that. It's so much easier to just let God deal with it. But anyway, we'll find that out later. I know it's easier said than done. So now we're jumping. She was a little girl. So she went out of the frying pan into the fire, living. And there's a lot of stories where nobody would take them in at first. Nobody wanted them. She lived in this little, I don't know, kind of like a place where they kept animals, because I know some of them had animals and that, like cows and stuff. And her mom had to go far away into other towns to sell stuff.
Well, that's 20 minutes. Do you want to keep going? Or
okay, we'll stop there because the next one here, can you do it? I'll do it up.
I thought that might be a good place to stop. Or keep.
The next one will start, it's in the 60s, 68,
right.
69, or 66. So we'll see, what was it like in Korea? And Mama Julia looks so cute. But real quick, I thought we could end with, because there's so many of those messages, that I'll just read one a day.
Okay.
And I know we already read some of them. Okay, so okay. Oh, well, this is good. This kind of explains it. This is from the Blessed Mother on March 4th, 2024, which it was not that long ago. Thus, my children, there is no time to hesitate and to procrastinate. Let all my children pray 5 more decades of the Rosary and practice the 5 spiritualities, so that a 3rd World War may not occur and world peace be established. By turning your lives into prayers helps you stay awake all the time. Amen. Okay. All right. 감사합니다.
Bye, everybody.
감사합니다.